You're listening to Lucid Cafe. I'm your host, Wendy Halley. Welcome to the final episode of Season 8. I think it's well timed because shit just keeps getting weirder and weirder. The weather patterns are all over the place. I don't pay attention to the headlines, but man, you'd have to be in a coma to not be aware of how batshit the whole political scene is. Deception is reaching new creative heights. I can't imagine how many doomsday cults are forming as I say these words. But, we have my buddy, Linda River Volte, here once again to help us make sense of the second half of 2026 through the lens of astrology. No predictions, just affirmation that we are right on schedule and some guidance on how to navigate these increasingly surreal waters. So please enjoy my conversation with Linda River Volte. Well, here we are again. As promised.
Yeah. Because we have good customer service.
That's right.
What we did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Also, and integrity.
Exactly.
Yep. Say we're going to do something.
We do it.
Damn well.
Yep.
Better.
Delivered.
Yep.
Yep.
So here we are.
Delivering.
Yes.
Yep.
Well,
I'm in delivery right now. I feel like I'm in delivery.
Labor pains.
Labor.
Speaking of labor pains, oh my.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
How about this experience on planet Earth right now?
Yeah. How about that?
We are recording on June 26th
Yep.
of 2026.
Yeah, and we're going to take a look at some of the astrological action for the second half of the year. So we're going to go from July through December of 26. We're not hurting for content. So
buckle up.
We have plenty.
All right. So this particular month coming up, July, is jam-packed.
It is jam-packed. And I think before we take off and start to orient to our summer and then talk a little bit about our autumn, which is also not hurting for content, that's for sure, from the astrological perspective, I think that something that I was thinking about was how we've been doing these check-ins, we've been doing these little updates and forecasts for a while, and there's a commonality, a strong commonality, not just of the theme of collapse and the midwifing of change, but there's also been a commonality so far in the way you and I, to my remembrance, but that you and I have come to this conversation. So often we will put our headsets on, drink from our giant mason jars, begin to be ridiculous and goofy, and then we will launch in and we'll sometimes be sassy and say shit like, okay, how fucked are we? You know, like, and we'll start kind of like revving the gas and we'll start, and we know that that's part of our humor coping mechanisms, and
truly,
and we love that about us.
Truly,
too.
Linda.
Actually,
how fucked are we?
Don't we? We love that about us, right? I know I do. But instead of stepping in that way, I guess I want to put a frame around the first half of the year. It feels important first to frame up that first half of 26.
Okay.
and to just remember the number of things that we have been through in that time. We have seen the arrival of some of the larger planetary aspects that we've been expecting and that we had little test drives of, but they really came properly to stay in the beginning of 26. And I what I'm hearing for a lot of folks is like, oh my God, we're in that day that we were once talking about. Like we were waiting for some of these changes. We were watching some of these evolutions. We were waiting for some of the planet people to change their caps and say a different thing in the narrative. And in the beginning of 26, they got there, but it's so new and so fragile. It's really in the second half of 26 that we'll start to see we'll start to see their real aspects, kind of like their true faces
Of the
of these
planetary.
planetary
Okay.
people and how they are.
So are you saying we got little tastes in the first half
Yep,
of the year?
we got some tastes where we
Previews?
had certain planets, and we'll get specific, but certain planets newly arrived in a new sign, ready to behave in a new style. And we haven't had a lot of time. We haven't had much praxis, right? We've had these new things happening. We haven't had a lot of praxis. We're about to really encounter that in the second half of the year.
So what do you mean by praxis?
Ways of practicing what these changes mean. It's almost like in the first half of the year, some of what we encountered was maybe an abstract or an intellectual engagement with what are some of these changes. And in the second half, we really find their materiality. We're like, oh, that's what that feels like or looks like. So I just want to mark that if you've come to the midpoint of 2026, and if you are feeling within the human family that you are a bit more than exhausted, somewhat bewildered by the pace at which things are continuing, and yet sensing that something is, I don't want to say that the other shoe is going to drop, because we're not talking like that. We're not talking that talk.
Okay.
But if you have the sense at the midpoint of 26 that just feels anticipatory and like there are many, many more question marks than answers, I just want to validate and verify that is the absolute space that we're inhabiting. So it is not a personal shortcoming if you have lost to some extent your capacity to vision, if you're having a hard time in your world personally, professionally, micro and macro, if you're unsure about what even could be on the horizon, like that's a function of this time. And so we'll talk about what that's going to look like.
Okay.
So July is one of those great examples of, proof is in the pudding kind of thing. Like, oh, we see these aspects and this is how it looks and feels. So one of the things we've observed over the last times we've checked in is that for the United States, for her people, for her astrological chart, for where she is in her development, okay, congratulations, she's 250 years old. Like, that is small potatoes in the life map of life in the cosmos, right?
Right.
We have not been doing this experiment for so very long. Even though like a week feels like a year now, right? Still. But here she is, she's coming up to her 250th birthday as the United States, certainly not as the place where First Nations people have long lived. And that date, that July 3rd and 4th date, and this may come out after that date, but you will bear it in mind anyway. That's one of the larger astrological aspects of 2026. And it's something called a Mars-Uranus conjunction. So it's the planet Mars and the planet Uranus meeting up in the sky and having their energies essentially face off, because that's sort of that's part of their characteristics, is that they're both fast moving, they bring surprises, and a Mars-Uranus conjunction is a day where, down comes the curtain that's been covering something up, and you really get a sense of what's at hand. That happens on the birth date, on the 250-year birth date of American culture, and it's something very strong and particular to the American identity. So that's the beginning of July. And if you look at the month of July, you are hard-pressed to find a single day in that calendar that doesn't have a substantial astrological moment of transit. And for people who don't have a frame on astrology, and you certainly don't need one to start to listen to some of this, but the energetics of any given day have to do with the astrology of the moment. The quality, the energy, the things that are possible and not possible, these are a function of the shape up of the astrological aspects on any given day. And the July calendar is like loaded start to finish with big moments. And these big moments are the announcement of the real arrival of the kind of change that we've been anticipating since 2020. They are well and properly delivered in July of this year.
Why 2020? What was it about?
2020 was an astrological set of aspects where we were in a time that was Capricorn heavy. We had a whole gang of planets lining up and starting to tell the story of capitalism, post-capitalism, decline in American culture, collapsing systems. The story began then, and it's actually taken us until this point to really see some of that disintegration. And we'll be able to see it better in July of this year. So the month of July gives us a new perspective on some of the changes that the outer planets are providing for us. There are harmonious and friendly aspects among the outer planets, to be sure, but there are additionally challenges and intensity with those planets where it feels very much like the month of July is superlative, like it's a month of superlatives. It's a month of like hyperbolic moments kind of all strung together. And it will be, again, important for people to be able to keep a perspective on what am I seeing played out in front of me, or even inside me, that's a bit extreme or hyperbolic, and how can I continue to sit with that, make space for that, and not be in a space of reaction, which is something that you and I have, talked about a lot, which is like, how do we go through these big human family moments with our little wise little nervous systems what does that look like? What does that mean? So July as well as August and the eclipses that we will experience in August, those are pretty high tone, high demand astrological moments. In August, we'll have one eclipse on the 12th and the other eclipse on the 27th. And that as a portal of time, we have eclipses every 6 months. We know how to do them. They're not brand new to us. It's not some transit that only happens many hundreds of years apart, but they're resets. They're always resets. So we'll have, let's say, a newsworthy and noteworthy July. And then we'll have a time in August where, just as we're trying to digest some of what's happened, we'll find ourselves again in a time of supercharged change, beginnings and endings. That's always the key with eclipses and eclipse portals. Things will come to their full and total end, and other things will be seeded. So as far as the summer goes, sitting down, to look at the body of the summer, there's a lot of demands on us cognitively, on us nervous system wise, and there will be quite a lot contending, trying to grab at our attention.
Maybe I should make myself 2 birthday cakes then in July.
Like, this is my July birthday in 2026. 2, only 2. I mean, come on, right? Let's...
Oh, 1 for each hand?
Baker's dozen at least you can do now. Yeah, it's really one of those moments in time where it's not a sleepy astrological month. Back in the day, we used to have those sometimes, but not so for this summer.
Yeah. So then it sounds like what you're suggesting is to be more of a witness, like try to see yourself more in that witness position rather than engaging, reacting.
It will go a long way. So there's been a lot of talk, astrologically and otherwise, over the past probably 3 or 4 years most strongly, where people are lamenting the lack of certainty in not just our daily lives and the knowability of our daily lives, but the trajectory of culture and humans ourselves, right? There's been this recognition that, this is a very different time. The markers that we used to rely on have either crumbled or are crumbling. Wow, what do we do, right? This July, you will be able to engage with the practicing of how do you sit with uncertainty? And
we love uncertainty.
Right. I mean, the two of us
put me in a sea of gray, and I'm just right at home.
So
Well, and truly, I mean, the whole kind of certainty thing is an illusion anyway.
Yes, and what July will remind us is that there has been a bit of a project going on over time in American culture, which we can certainly track from its inception, but there's something strong about the American cultural moment in the 1920s, and we will find, if we are looking back over the past 100 years, that there are ways of thinking about class and race and identity and self and individual and collective. We'll start to notice, if we're looking back at the American experiment since the 1920s, that although there is a growing concern with and recognition of the individual rights of the human, that it's been largely a project. It's been capitalism. It's been a project of superiority in the material world, that it is the material that is the apex of all success. The way that we have had systems of time and money, particularly over the last 100 years, those were built to appear as certainties, and they are not certainties. They were constructed as part of a cultural project that we've been in.
Right, right. I mean, we just don't think of it that way, but if you...
We don't, because we have had to in order to survive such a system.
Right. And you have to participate.
We have had to play the game.
In order to survive.
Yeah. You have had to participate under a varying range of conditions of privilege and access. You have had to participate and attempt to kind of run the gauntlet. And what is an inflection point in consciousness, and particularly in American consciousness, in the second half of 26, is we know that that game is nonsense.
Well, it's becoming more and more evident, right? And that's what you were kind of hinting at.
That's part
with
of
the
what
first half
happens
of the
with
year.
with the collapse since 2020. But what we're being, at first we were being invited, and then we were being encouraged, and then we were being highly encouraged. Like, we were going through these steps of, let's look at these things as they come down. Let's look at these things that we have perceived as certainties, and they're still crumbling. It's just that our human sense of consciousness, our awareness that there's much, much more to this story than we're receiving in a kind of consensus reality way, that becomes mighty strong in the second half of the year.
Okay.
I was thinking about how, in a very strange way, even though I understand all of what is coming to us in our experiment in the second half of this year, I still really believe that people are catching on every single day. And I did not have such a generous attitude, perhaps, in, 22 or 23. I was kind of like, you either get on this bus or we're in deep shit. This thing's going down, guys. We can't hold the bus all day long, right? And it's like, well, culture and spirit have collaborated to hold the bus at the bus stop a little longer and make conditions a little more ridiculous and the rainstorms a little heavier. And wouldn't it be nice to get on this bus where it's dry with people who understand, and like, that's, despite some of the challenges of the second half of this year, I'm feeling a greater sense of, I won't say optimism, but I'm feeling a greater sense of hope.
Well, that is optimism.
Yeah. I didn't want to go quite so far as to shine it up too much, but
lowercase h in your hope. Because
it will become more and more challenging through the next few years, and it is no joke astrologically. And
more than it's going to be the second half of this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So 2027 is a real squeeze, and we know it is. But it's everything we do up until that point that can give us more choices, even though it feels like the choices are becoming fewer. And it's because of our own individual willingness to just drop some of these old things and just say, you know what, I may have done this or that for 30 years. I may have believed this or that and maybe for that time in my life it was great and it worked or not. But I'm seeing all around us more of a sense of like, wow, this story has not been told yet. We are still in the flux of what it is. So why declare disaster? Why declare dystopia? Why use our creative capacities to keep feeding something that is substantially powerful right now and is frankly just a fucking blip in the human timeline?
Very true. Yeah. I I have referenced this in one of our previous conversations, or maybe a couple of them, that that visionary experience where I saw that we were coming up to a big change. Things were going to be changing on a global level, that the old way of seeing things, everything that was hidden, was going to be coming to the surface. And then things were going to be falling away, collapsing. And it's interesting because I never knew how it was going to look. Like I didn't predict things like the pandemic. I thought in my own brain parts, I was thinking more environmental, like it was going to be a lot of environmental catastrophic things that would get our attention, which is still on the table.
Yes.
And we have had our share of environmental catastrophes since 2008 when I had that vision. But the big one that's always been really hard to wrap my head around was the system of capitalism. And it sounds like the potential collapse of that. And that hits everybody in their survival bones. Right? And but if you think about it, it's such a narrow way of looking at the way we live. And we've all bought into it, and it's like an indoctrination. And it's the way the system has been set up, and you have to participate in order to survive. So that's not the only way, though. And that's what I think is, like, if it sounds like what you're saying is to not get too married to any old way. And to be open to the possibilities that could be there.
And this is a time where, even though the passage will technically become more narrow for a time, it's like, well, that's the narrowness of the material passage. But what is above and outside of that, and the potential for people to energetically engage in ways that may be new to them. There's an incredible amount of people power in that. Like, we know the places in which the people hold the power and where they presently don't. But there's such a potential for like an upswell and an uprising if we can acknowledge and share with each other the acknowledgement that we are not here as humans just to produce and stay within these very delineated frames. One of the harder parts is because we don't know what is being birthed now.
That's the gray.
It's entirely possible that this is a project that takes longer and will not be seen to its fruition in our lifetime. And that's an important thing to allow yourself to sit with. Like, what would it, if I just put on my imagination cap and I was sitting with myself and it was just a little thing I was thinking and everything was really fine around me. I was given the permission to just take this moment to really stretch And I thought, wow, all of these changes, who knows where things are going. I may or may not see the new world be birthed. How do I feel about that? What does it mean to me? And if in my imagination game that is the case, then what am I here to do right now?
Great question.
Because that question is, I believe, what we need to hold to in the second half of the year.
Well, it makes me think that it's opening the doors to possibility, planting seeds for possible directions that things could go in. I mean, it makes me wonder, as you were talking, that how absurd things are looking more and more, especially the earlier part of this year. Like the stories I'm hearing, let's just take the medical industry, which
Yep.
I use that word
Industrial
very
complex.
Yeah, I use it intentionally. The stories I'm hearing from clients of their interactions with medical doctors and insurance companies,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I mean, who the fuck wants
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
impossible. It's not patient centered. It's not caring,
It's heartbreaking.
and
It's
people are
heartbreaking.
suffering as a
Yep.
result,
Yeah.
and have to jump through a zillion hoops,
Yep.
and then find themselves either with a satisfactory answer or an unsatisfactory answer or no answer whatsoever, just with a bruise on their head from banging their head against the wall.
Right. These are exactly the places when we talk about collapse. We're talking about things from finance to education to healthcare systems to tech to media systems to our food systems and our waterways. We're talking about looking at the way things have been to date and saying, wow, what a disaster. Is this what we believe healthcare is?
Mm-hmm.
Is this how our food system could work? Is this what the financial system means for just any old American person? Like, these are the systems that were put in place, and false promises were made, and those are being called in and called up. And that is part of the being able to open your eyes and say, okay, well, if these things are even still collapsing as we speak, they are still in a state of collapse. And if I may or may not, in the long game, see the true fruition of this, what does my life mean in this moment, and what do I do with it? It is all the more important. And there is a part of me that feels genuinely hopeful, because people will start asking that question more and more. It won't just be little batches of us asking.
Well, out of necessity, right? Because we're
Out
not
of
going to be comfortable, I
necessity.
imagine.
Out of necessity.
And
Yeah.
we're getting this taste of absurdity, perhaps,
Yep.
to show us what we clearly do not want
Yeah.
to create.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of time watching the culmination of spells that were put in place long ago. And we're watching the decay and decline and the shadow of those spells.
Mm.
And
The death rattle.
the real one. So for this summer, when we say that things will be hyperbolic and superlative, and it will be like theater of the absurd, right? It will, for a range of astrological reasons. And certainly that's easy enough for us to believe based on what's happened in the first half of the year. But the themes of evolution, revolution, innovation, we're trying to figure out what is the human project. There's no mistake that we're in the moment that we're in with AI as humans, saying, what is this technology and what is humanity? That's the Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini era. Zero surprise for astrologers with that one. But wow, what a fraught moment. It is like, it's a big, big moment. that additionally is part of the second half of the year. So when we're thinking about the astrological sort of starscape, we have the outer planets, which are making change on a grand scale. These are like generational, cultural, global energetics. But when we look at what we call the personal planets or the inner planets, when we do that for the second half of this year, we get a bunch of other story possibilities open up that we're going to be learning from and growing inside of in the second half of this year. So the biggest of those sort of containers in which to learn, or curriculums in which to learn, there are 2 retrogrades that happen in the second half of the year that are substantially important. We know that if you consider retrograde planets, that the advice is, hey, the universe is giving a little bit of a time out where the power and the efficacy of this planet, it's not really at full steam. It's in a retrograde. It may be working differently than we're accustomed to, or maybe not at all. So retrogrades are times of pause, review, editing, reflection. They're not meant to be going full steam ahead. And it's not always easy to accommodate these retrogrades, right? In terms of like, can I take a pause on something? Can I allow myself to think more deeply on something? But this year, the months of October and November of 2026 are opportunities for us to, even while staying with the big stories, even while staying with these enormous outer planet changes, we get to do some more peeking in at our own stuff with these retrogrades that come. The first one is a Mercury retrograde, and the second one is a Venus retrograde. It just so happens this year that these 2 retrogrades overlap. They're kind of superimposed on each other. So it's like a double strong dose of retrograde. When we think about a Venus retrograde, I've certainly observed more and more, probably over the last 8 years, the way Venus retrogrades impact our economy in a big way. Not just our economy culturally, but our individual economic bottom lines, I guess we could say. The reality of the resources available to us. So a Venus retrograde is best known as a time where we review and reflect upon our relationships, upon our friendships and our colleagueships and our family connections and romantic connections. And we look at those bridges that go from heart to heart. It is additionally about our relationship with pleasure. It is also about how well resourced we feel ourselves to be. This year, we have a Venus retrograde. It's always a 6-week endeavor, opportunity. It is a moment where the bright light of ease and pleasure and comfort and connectivity just needs to take a break, just needs to go sort of behind the scenes for a 6-week period of time. And we will have that period of time from October the 3rd through November the 13th. So there's our 6-week chunk. All of October, first half of November. we will have the month of September to try and get our bearings about what happened over the summer. But we will all have the invitation with the Venus retrograde in October and first half of November to go more deeply into our personal stuff. So because she retrogrades on these 8-year cycles, this retrograde is connected energetically, thematically, to the autumn of 2018. Autumn of 2018. And it will not be a direct repeat. It is never supposed to be a repeat, but there will be some resonances, some things that we're noticing, micro and macro, about the 8-year prior cycle.
I barely remember what happened last week. I don't know.
Oh my God. Well, go back to the email and start sifting, because this is actually a brilliant way. Actually, you know what? Don't do it till September. Go through your summer. Make a note on your calendar that says, oh, hi, September. Go back and check the logs for what was happening in autumn of 2018. The way that it will function this autumn is we will be asked to review and reflect relationship and resources and do our kind of deep dive in a really personal way. There's bound to be things about the collective that appear, but it's a personal process. It tends to be interior and private by its nature. And that coming in the autumn will be overlapped by a Mercury retrograde in the same sector of the sky, which runs from, I think, October 23rd to November 13th. So we can really start to see that in the second half of this year, we have a big and eventful, high energy, kind of electrical currents of change in the summer. We have a month of September where we're trying to regain our bearings. And then we go into October and November, and between the actual retrograde experiences and the shadow period that follows a retrograde, the autumn will really kind of match the energetics of autumn, where there's an interiority. There's having to sit with, where are we feeling less resourced or less connected or less loved or less engaged than we would like to, and how do we move from there? And Venus retrogrades are always tricky. I mean, they happen every year and a half. They are reset points. But this is really different because we're starting to, it's like we're being asked to do this personal and in-depth exploration in the fray of much larger change. And it's important to value that, like, no matter what we pour into the collective, no matter what kind of collective dreaming and visioning and working we're doing, like, you have to keep your side of the street clean, like, as you go along. And so that will be a point. So if you're thinking ahead to the autumn and you're thinking about calendaring things or planning things ahead, just know that October and November, we'll all be kind of sorting and discerning and parsing and reflecting, and it's appropriate that the energy is that way. So that's a big part of second half.
All right. So a lot of change. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like.
But we know the themes. Although we can't give outcomes, and it would be premature to give outcomes. The outer planets have been delivering a solid message in the fields of technology, communications. It's like wild days to come. It's really, these are the things, systems of digitization, information surveillance. What does it mean to be human in this technological moment? That is for sure, no question, the arena in which we're adventuring.
Okay. So what about the economic story?
Yeah, the economic story is we will be contending with the Venus retrograde in the autumn. But the economic story that is incredibly important is we as a people are redefining humanity, and we are redefining work, and we are redefining economics and systems of value and systems of exchange. And these are all just in a wobble as they're becoming animated, by the questions, by the question marks. More and more people will be inclined to divest practically and energetically from some of these decaying and collapsing systems. There's no way around that.
Yep, but that would, I guess, further weaken them.
It would further weaken them, and we need to allow them to continue evolving through disintegration.
Okay. So, one of the things, the messages that have been coming through in my healing sessions that I've been facilitating for folks, and it started this year, really, is that it's an incredibly ripe time for healing, that a lot of stuff can be healed very quickly, it seems, if you put your energy in that direction. And that can be incredibly empowering. And the importance of connecting with your interior world, in particular your higher self or your oversoul, as I like to call it, but whatever you like to call it, because you have access to tremendous wisdom inside of you, and you don't have to use that frame. You can use whatever frame you want. But the other thing I was going to say is that the message that came through and has been coming through, and of course take everything I say with a grain of salt, if it resonates, cool, is that we all, 8 billion of us, incarnated on this planet at this time, intentionally, to go through all of this. And so there's a part of us that understands why we're here and why we're going to be going through this, which to me is very comforting.
Yeah.
To like, okay, I signed up for this.
Yeah.
It's not random, and it's not punishing. And
yes,
it's like,
not punishing.
So there's a role I'm playing actually in all of
Yes.
this. And it's not about saving the world or being the author of the new systems or whatever, but it seems like it's an important role.
Yes.
Collectively, like if everybody were to, in their own way, contribute their own, well, just to make their own contributions in whatever that looks like. It sounds like it's going to be really vital.
This is why when we talk about the decay of these systems, which have needed to go down for some time, but if we were not going through this level of cultural shadow work and decay, if we were not going through that, people would just be going about business as usual.
Yep.
This, when I talk about the strange feeling of optimism that I do have, it's because I believe that there are more and more people that are understanding by the day and by the moment. I was surrounded by and raised by and living inside a curriculum that is changing profoundly. My worth is not measured by my productivity. I have worth, inherent worth, well outside of any of these systems of materiality. First, that's a fucking fact. You're a soul and a spirit with an agenda and a value that the world that you've been raised inside has no language for, has no way to acknowledge or encourage. It's just, that's not part of that game. So if we're going to be changing games, and if rules are going to be changing, more and more people are starting to ask the question, why? Why do we do it like this? What's this? But what is this for? How in the world did it get to that? And there's a tracing of systems really within American culture over the last 100 years, but very strongly over the last probably 40 years, 45 years, to just look at, you know, the line of belief that you've had to play by. What would happen if those weren't the rules of the game? What would it mean if there truly was enough for everybody? What would it mean if instead of just some random like progressive lip service about identity and inclusivity and how, you know, sometimes I think about the millennials and I'm like, oh man, you guys, poor you guys. I'm really feeling for you. I'm the youngest of the Gen X
And I'm the beginning of the Gen X.
Oh man, and so I think about the cultural moment that generation of folks came up in with all of the baloney fictional fucking promises. And this is who the US is, and you can be anything you want, and we're beyond racism, and like, holy mother. And then everything's profoundly turned into a tech influencer, Instagrammable. Everything sacred has become an industrial complex. Oh man, you millennials. I never talked shit about the avocado toast joke. I never said that about you. I never said bad stuff. And I stick with you, millennials. I see you. You're seen by me. I'm not like a mean Gen X lady who's like, millennials, whatever. I'm really feeling for you.
I don't think the Gen X folks, as far as I can tell, they're like, whatever. That's what
I'm feeling for that gang because there's a special kind of brainwashing that that was piped in for them, and it's like they see what really is, and man, does that hurt. And I feel for that. But that is, and the Gen Z kids, they're like, what a crock of shit, start to finish, you guys. What, like, it's great because they're just like, oh, wow. But this is the moment where these are the systems that are going down. If we can divest from the extreme dystopia as the final answer, if we can know that as we go, it will be probably harder than any of us imagined or contended would be, and suddenly your humanity, like, you have far greater access to your humanity at this point than not, because there are other voices that are affirming.
I would like to think so. Jesus.
We do. It's just that the systems, the oppressive systems and constructs do not acknowledge that humanity. But everything that is emergent, everything where we're looking at each other and saying, couldn't it be like this? Or why isn't it like this? Or it wouldn't be so hard to make it like this, Like, those are the voices that are gaining. And it's an issue of consciousness.
yeah, it sounds like being curious is a really great
Yes.
approach. And also, I think our understanding of the nature of reality is so limited. We
So
we are
limited.
experiencing
Yep.
just a very narrow bandwidth
Yep.
of what's real. And I've had a lot of really cool non-physical, non-ordinary reality
Yep.
experiences, and I feel like even in those, I'm only glimpsing
Yeah,
a
yeah,
very
same.
small amount, right?
Yep, same.
But what those experiences have shown me is that what the indigenous people have been saying for
Yeah,
thousands of years is that this is the dream.
yeah,
This
yeah.
physical reality is the dream. And I'm going to venture to say, and I could be wrong, that we are collectively dreaming this
Yeah,
together.
yeah.
And so that means if we become lucid enough, we can
Yes,
collectively dream a different dream
exactly.
into existence.
Yes,
So there's a lot of power
yeah,
and agency in
yes.
that.
And that is the surreal quality of this moment, while all these industrial complexes and consensus reality are screaming their messages like fever pitch. Their nonsense could is just so loud and so bright. There is a quiet but growing, energetic that's having people ask different
Mm.
questions.
Yep.
And despite, the volatility of the summer and some of the ways that we'll experience the autumn, as potentially for folks a little heavy, a little frustrating. We come out with gold at the end of the journey, but it's not an easy 6 weeks in a Venus retrograde, you know.
But it sounds like we have to go through this in
Yeah.
order to be able to see that we don't want this.
Yep. This is why it's so essential to just keep saying there is no return to normal. There is no such thing as going back to whatever. We wouldn't fucking want it if we could.
Normal is loaded
It's a
anyway.
really, we don't want to turn back and put and go, but that is going backward. We can't, we don't want to. We're not going backward.
Well, I don't think we can.
We can't.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
And so, no. So if there's any, it's just what comes to the front for me for this time, astrologically and as a human moment, is we are finding ourselves having to reside in liminal space, in an in between time. We cannot offer true answers and predictions. Beware of those people who are trying to give you definitive info on how this whole experiment ends up, because they're not entirely taking the ride with you. Like this is a shared ride of experimentation and exploration,
and we don't know the outcome
and
yet.
we do not know the outcome yet, but we have every opportunity to influence and shape that outcome through where we're sitting in ourselves with the principle of change.
And given how much or how little we know about reality, who knows what variations of outcomes?
Yes.
Maybe there could be different outcomes,
Yeah.
and we are, depending on where our head's at,
Exactly. Yeah.
we will dream
Yeah.
that reality into existence. But not everyone will. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a headful.
Yeah.
I can't believe I just said that
Yeah.
out loud. But I'll make a prediction. I
All
will make
right.
a prediction. The age of materialist science is dying.
Well said. Yes, that is a. There are these. I was used to be a children's librarian, and there are these chapter books with this little character called Judy Moody, and she's like really sassy. And when she believes something, she says, that's a nonfiction prediction. So I'm going to actually say nonfiction prediction is, yes, this is the idea, and this is borne out by the astrological narrative, the age of materialism, the age of Earth, all of the limits that came from the original beauty of the 1600s scientific revolution. We're working differently. It is not just about the material plane. It is not, capitalism, rah, rah, rah. We are moving to the age of air. We are now in the age of air. And July's astrology really ignites that 400-year cycle, really brings it in such a big way. This is nothing more than a spectacular, gigantic cultural pivot.
Okay.
Like, this is nothing more and nothing less than that. This is big deal stuff. This is hyperbolic stuff. We couldn't give it enough exclamation points, and at the same time, this all happens inside the very quiet moments of our life. And it's up to us day by day, with our actions, with the people that we collaborate with, to stay open. To stay open to possibility.
Okay. And so you are focused closer to home.
You're focused closer to home.
And within yourself.
Yep.
And your community.
There is a power in hyperlocality. There is a power in building even stronger and stronger those systems of understanding our nervous system, understanding our collective system, regulation, co-regulation. Big deal. It continues to be a really big deal.
Okay. And then for the bigger picture, the more global stuff, we're sitting in our, let's say, recliner with our popcorn. Or in the bleachers. Watching it.
We're watching it.
Just watching it. Because if you really look at some of the shit that's happening, it's like...
It's spectacle.
It's weird. Yeah, the theater.
It's spectacle by design. It's the theater of the absurd.
Yeah.
Yep.
If you don't get caught up in it, the absurdity is just
we're in the bleachers, and we're with our popcorn.
Like, really? Wow.
But, like, we're eating our popcorn, and then we say to our friend, like, amazing, popcorn comes from corn. Do you want to grow corn with me? And they're like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. And that, it's like in the bleachers, as we are in a witnessing capacity, because we know that that there's so much more available to us than anything we've ever been led to believe. Let's have side conversations in the bleachers where really cool shit comes of it, even as we're heckling from the grandstand.
Yes. And knowing that our ancient ancestors did this beautifully.
Yes.
But we will be doing it differently.
Yeah. We will be doing it.
But we can borrow from our ancient ancestors.
Yeah.
Because the shit works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it, yeah.
Yeah. So as we come to the end of 26, you and I will meet again to deliver a first half of 27 forecast. But up until then, there is plenty to say about just collaborating with change.
And would it be, I'm just thinking, why would it be helpful to get your astrology chart read at this particular time through the rest of the year?
Today it was so great. I had a client who has a 3-degree Gemini sun, which means for this person, they're having a Uranus-Sun conjunction in the sign of Gemini, which has to do with mobility and transportation. So you crisscross and combine accidents, biking, like I could tick a bunch of stuff off on my hands. And this is just what this poor woman has gone through. She had a giant bike accident. She's like down for the count for many months. And I was just talking to her and describing this transit for her, and we were both kind of laughing at the audacity of how powerful the symbology of these transits are, and just being able to say, oh, phew, well, I have a frame for this now. I can understand. I'm able to frame up the changes that I'm undergoing. It is not a personal punishment. It is not fate with a capital F shaking me and jiggling me around as its plaything. This is the part of the story that I'm in. And it's the part of the story for now. And so if I understand that in the now, it frees you up to have a whole different set of responses. It kind of does some of that cultural collapse of old story by freshly framing a thing as to where you are today. So working with your astrology chart, even though I will say for sure, as a person who's been inside the discipline and the wonder of astrology for almost 30 years, astrology itself is changing. The spirit world is changing. There are spirits and guides which are no longer online. They are not presently available. They may or may not come back online. There is abundant change within this, and still astrology as a tool of orientation and understanding just continues to deliver. Like, it just continues.
It gives context.
It gives context.
It helps you take things less personally.
Yes.
that are happening.
Even though, and that's something that's so always I love about charts. We're talking about someone's personal chart. It's quite personal business, right? It's them at a very intimate, personal level. And yet the way we can treat the chart and sit with it is like, well, all things considered, what frame are we going to work inside?
Like the client example you just gave.
Yeah.
Like she went probably from feeling pretty beat up.
Complete bewilderment to saying,
by the universe.
Okay, so this is some of what I'm encountering, and
what the fuck?
Here's how I can move with it, and yeah. So it still stands as like just getting that little peek in to some of the development that you're going through is like endlessly valuable.
I know. Well, I just saw you a couple of days ago, and incredibly valuable.
Yeah, customers will account for the quality of the product. So, like we said at the beginning, we're just here to help. We're just in customer service.
So, if someone would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yep, we will put my contact information in the show notes. You can be in touch about things like astrology and tarot, holistic sex education, are among the many things that are
or a combination of all of those things.
Often a combination of those things.
Yeah, that does happen.
Yeah.
So, yes, I will put a link to your site in the show notes.
Yep.
And, well, Linda, I've fastened my seatbelt.
Yep.
I have my popcorn.
Yep. Right. Yeah.
And I'm in good company.
Yes, we're in great company for this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thanks.
Thank
What should we
you.
call this episode? Like, please keep listening. It doesn't get. It'll be better towards the end.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stay with it. Stay the course. But we could do something like that.
All right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. That's what we'll do.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks,
buddy.
Thank you, buddy.
Okay, so lots of opportunities to practice being Zen. Just living moment by moment. I'm so good at that. Not. If you'd like to connect with Linda, which I highly recommend, to get a sense of how the coming months will affect you personally, you can find her contact information on the About Linda page of her website, lindarivervolente.net. There's a link to Linda's website in the show notes. Okay, that wraps it up for this season. I'll be back in the fall to start a fresh new season that's gearing up to be another good one. Just to give you a little taste, we'll be exploring the Akasha, tarot, casting prosperity spells. The very popular Dave Clark will be back to discuss how you can become clairvoyant. And of course, more of Linda. In the meantime, please check out the other podcast I do with my friend Sarah Finley called Realms of Curiosity. Thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for sharing it with others. And thank you for all the kind words about the show. Please take good care. Until next time.